Major breaking news. President Donald Trump has just urged the Republicans in the U.S. Senate to eliminate the filibuster. Well, should the Republicans in the U.S. Senate eliminate the filibuster? And how should we think about this from the perspective of the Second Amendment community? I'm going to explain to you how I see it. And no, I do not agree with President Trump on this one. We'll talk about it when I come right back. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the 4 Box of Dine, a proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and proud to say the top voice of the Second Amendment in America. Thank you, 2025 Gundies Awards. All right, folks, so this is a big story, a lot going on here. We're going to break it down. President Donald Trump, as you know, who I'm a big fan of, has come out and has been urging the Republicans in the U.S. Senate to eliminate the filibuster. What is the filibuster and why should we care about it? Well, to begin with, the filibuster is a procedural tradition in the U.S. Senate. It does not exist in the United States House of Representatives. It only exists in the U.S. Senate, which is supposed to be the world's greatest deliberative body. The way the filibuster works is, if someone opposes a piece of legislation, they have the ability to filibuster, which means to try to slow down the enactment or the vote on that bill. Now, in the modern era, I'm not going to talk about the past, but I'm going to talk about today. The way it really works is this. You need 60 votes, 60 votes in the U.S. Senate to vote for what's known as cloture. What cloture is basically the end of debate on a topic. If you do not get 60 votes for cloture or 60 votes to end the debate on whatever that topic is, the U.S. Senate is not allowed to vote on the topic, which means to pass any legislation or historically, back in the day, to confirm a judge or something, you would need to vote for cloture, and it required under the Senate rules 60 votes for cloture. Today, that 60 rule for cloture rule, i.e. you need 60 votes for cloture, really only applies today when it comes to substantive legislation. Meaning you want to pass a huge tax bill, you want to pass more gun control, you want to pass a new version of Obamacare, whatever it is, some huge piece of substantive legislation, you need 60 votes to vote for cloture. Now, Donald Trump, as part of the government shutdown, was urging the Republicans to kill the filibuster and enact a new budget and open the government. Now, it turns out that that's not going to be necessary because, a bunch of Democrats, I think 8 Democrats or so, have now decided to join with Republicans to reopen the government. So there's going to be 60 votes for cloture on reopening the government, and the government's going to reopen now. But that has given rise to a big debate in conservative circles, including in the Second Amendment community. And I'm going to break it down how I see it. And the debate goes like this. We know for a fact, and this is true, that the vast majority of Democrats in the United States and the vast majority of Democrats in the U.S. Senate, and now today, perhaps every single Democrat in the U.S. Senate, has gone on the record saying that they want to get rid of the filibuster. Now, you may recall during the Joe Biden years, there's a huge push by the anti-Americans, by the progressive left, the radical left, to eliminate the filibuster. And the only reason why the filibuster was not eliminated was because two Democratic senators, one was Joe Manchin from West Virginia, and the other was Kristen Sinema, the senator from Arizona. These two senators refused to get rid of the filibuster. Just to understand, to get rid of the filibuster requires you to change the rules of the Senate. That only requires 51 votes, or 50 votes plus a tie-breaking vote of the president of the Senate, which is the vice president of the United States. But because Kristen Sinema, Democrat, Arizona, and because Joe Manchin, Democrat, West Virginia, You can debate if they're independents, but set that issue aside. They're basically Democrats. Because they both refused to get rid of the filibuster, that rule that says that you cannot close debate on a substantive piece of legislation without 60 votes voting for cloture, that rule continues in place today. Had the Democrats been able to eliminate the filibuster, then we know what they would have done. Because they've been saying this for many years. They would create 2 new Democratic states. They would create Puerto Rico as a state with guaranteed 2 Democratic senators. They would create the District of Columbia as a state with guaranteed 2 new Democrat senators. They would enact a nationwide law that says that voting ID is not permitted in any state. They would enact a nationwide quote-unquote assault weapon ban and magazine ban. And they would expand, this is very important, folks, they would expand the number of seats on the U.S. Supreme Court from its current 9 to 13 or 15. And then they would go ahead and, of course, have their Democratic president nominate all new justices, and then they would confirm those justices with their majority in the Senate. They've told you they're going to do that. In fact, James Carville, the famous Democratic consultant for, among others, Bill Clinton, literally said that this week, that the Democrats are going to take over in 2028 the White House, the House, and the Senate. And this is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to pack the Supreme Court. And what that means for our Second Amendment rights is clear if they do this. Because not only will they pass the nationwide assault weapon ban, their newly constituted Supreme Court with 5 or 6 new Ketanji Brown Jacksons on the court will have the votes to undeniably outvote any of the originalists that support the Constitution as it was written by the Founding Fathers. Which means that assault weapon ban that will be nationwide will be upheld in all respects, and that's right, all of your guns will be turned in. Now, I should note that this is exactly what I anticipated happening when I was on the campaign trail as a media surrogate for Donald Trump back in 2016. I said this repeatedly, that this is what Hillary Clinton was going to do. She was essentially going to, through regulations and court packing, get her entire agenda through. Thank God Donald Trump won in 2016 and Hillary Clinton lost. Now, in light of what the Democrats have said they are undeniably going to do, which is to throw America under the bus, the question is, should Republicans now preempt the Democrats and get rid of the filibuster, and we take advantage of it? And there's some arguments for that. If you know the other side is going to use the elimination of the filibuster, and the reason why that's so important is, if you get rid of the filibuster, it means that you can now vote for cloture with just 51 votes in the Senate. You will no longer need 60 votes, which means that all you'll need to pass major legislation is to have 51 votes in the Senate, or 50 votes in the Senate plus the Vice President of the United States being a Democrat. You will have 50 or 51 votes, and that's enough. So the minority party will no longer be able to filibuster major pieces of legislation. Everything that, whoever controls the majority in the Senate will be able to pass it, and if they have the equal control of the House and the White House, they could pass anything. And certainly the Republicans pass anything, but we know the Democrats have an entire agenda laid out. They've had it laid out for over 10 years. They're ready to go. The Republicans have not thought this through, and they're not ready to go. So even if you gave them a filibuster, got rid of the filibuster for the Republicans, I don't think they could do anything effective with it. Now, should we get rid of the filibuster? The answer is no, I don't think we should. To begin with, let's learn the lesson of Harry Reid, and then I want to talk about the reality on the ground that I don't think we're going to lose the Senate anytime soon. So to begin with, the last time there was a big game played by the elimination of the filibuster was in the year of our Lord 2013. When Nevada U.S. Senator Harry Reid eliminated the filibuster for federal judicial nominations. He did this because the Republicans were filibustering too many Barack Obama nominees at the federal bench. When this occurred, several people, including Senator Mitch McConnell, said, this is going to backfire big time. If you get rid of the filibuster for judicial nominations, it's going to backfire on the Democrats. And the Democrats laughed. They wanted to pack, I believe, the D.C. Circuit, the D.C. Court of Appeals, and the Fourth Circuit. They wanted to pack these courts with a bunch of Democrats. And they got rid of the filibuster for the lower federal courts so that the lower federal courts only required 51 votes in the Senate to vote for cloture, and then they could just vote along party lines. And that's exactly what happened. And it looked like the Democrats had a short-term win. But then President Trump won in 2016, and now the filibuster had been eliminated by the Democrats. And what did President Trump do? Now that the filibuster had been eliminated for the federal judgeships below the Supreme Court, what did Donald Trump do? He went ahead and confirmed, with the Senate's help, 230 federal judges, many of whom got 0 Democratic votes. For example, 3 Supreme Court justices, Justice Neil Gorsuch was confirmed by the Senate, of course, after Donald Trump nominated him. But both, listen carefully, folks, this is important, both Justice Brett Kavanaugh and Justice Amy Coney Barrett received a grand total in the U.S. Senate of 0. 0 Democrat votes in support of their confirmation. It was purely along party lines. Now, before Harry Reid eliminated the filibuster for the federal courts, for nominees to the federal courts, it would require 60 votes to get rid of the filibuster, which meant you had to have some level of bipartisanship. And as a consequence, we got more squishy Republicans on the federal bench. That's how we got like Sandra Day O'Connor types. That's how we got Anthony Kennedy types. And frankly, David Souter. Remember him? John Paul Stevens. And even Chief Justice John Roberts. A lot of squishy Republicans. But once they eliminated the filibuster, Donald Trump took full advantage of this and eliminated the filibuster. Mitch McConnell eliminated the filibuster for the Supreme Court based upon the fact that Harry Reid had already gotten rid of the filibuster for the other federal courts, meaning the district courts and the courts of appeals. And Donald Trump was not needed or no longer needed to negotiate with the Democrats in the Senate to appoint squishy Republicans. We got to appoint hardcore originalists. If Harry Reid had not gotten rid of the filibuster, we would never have gotten Amy Coney Barrett on the bench. We never would have gotten Brett Kavanaugh on the bench. And I'm not sure we would have gotten even Neil Gorsuch on the bench. We would have had to point a bunch of squishy Republicans, and I can assure you those squishy Republicans would not have issued the decisions in Bruin. They would not have issued the decision in Dobbs getting rid of Roe v. Wade. They would not have gotten rid of the Chevron doctrine that screws the administrative agency deep state, and so on and so on. So Harry Reid thought he had a big win by getting rid of the filibuster, but as it turned out, long run, the Republicans were able to tremendously benefit from the mistake that Harry Reid made. Now, the question is, Mark, at some point the Democrats are going to take over the Senate, the House, and the presidency, and then they're going to do all that crazy stuff, and we'll be screwed. Shouldn't we do anything ahead of time? Well, the question is how realistic it is. And look, you know, I'm a realist. I'm not Pollyannish. I don't just blow smoke up your dupa to make everyone happy. The question is, how realistic is it that the Republicans will lose the U.S. Senate at any point in the next many years? Well, anything's possible, but it's unlikely. And why do I say that? It's a math problem, folks. It's a math problem, and it doesn't work out well for the Democrats at all. It's going to get a little geeky, so I'm giving you geek alert right now. Geek alert right now. Right now, as we sit here in 2025, there are 22 states. You can do the math. You can double check me. There are 22 states that President Donald Trump won in 2016, 2020, 2024. 22 states Donald Trump won 3 straight times by more than 8% each time. 22 states, and all of those have Republican senators. Take 22 times 2, gives you 44 Republican senators that we should never lose. 44. We need 51. So let's keep doing the math. There are 2 states that odds are the Republicans are going to continue to win. 2 Senate seats. Those 2 seats, Texas and Florida. That's right. Texas and Florida are on top of those 22 states that Trump won 3 times by 8% or more every time. Then you got Florida and Texas. Now you're gone from 22 states to 24 states that are, I would call, solidly red. When you take the 24 states and you multiply by 2, i.e. 2 senators, what do you get? You get 48. 48 senators somewhat close to being guaranteed Republican. Nothing's guaranteed in this world but death and taxes. But based on my math, you got 48 senators Republican, largely guaranteed, which means the Republicans only have to pick up 3 additional Senate seats from the following states to get to 51. And where do Republicans moving forward have to pick up 3 additional senators to get to 51? They have to pick up 3 senators from some combination of, ready? Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, Maine, Pennsylvania, Michigan, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. If the Republicans cannot pick up 3 Senate seats of all those, in all those sort of purpley swing states, they've got bigger problems. You see, we've got basically 24 solid red states. The Democrats have 18 solid blue states, as I see it. So that's 36 guaranteed for the Democrats to 48 kind of guaranteed for the Republicans. Understand that nothing is guaranteed. So it seems to me, just by virtue of that math alone, odds are the Republicans should be able to keep the Senate for quite some time. So it doesn't seem to make any sense to get rid of the filibuster, given that we're likely going to control the Senate. So I think that's very good news, that the scenario where the doomsday scenario where the Democrats control the House, the White House, and the Senate doesn't appear to be in the offing anytime soon. And keep in mind that even if you wanted to get rid of the filibuster today in November 2025, there's a reasonably good chance the Democrats could win the House in November 2026. If that were to happen, it doesn't matter that the Senate gets rid of the filibuster. Why? Because if they got rid of the filibuster to pass a bunch of crazy right-wing, conservative, Second Amendment-oriented, whatever you want to call it, pieces of legislation, it's never going to get through a Democratic-controlled House anyway. So the benefit to passing the filibuster, or to getting rid of the filibuster, to pass legislation that you cannot otherwise pass between now and, the fall of 2026, do we really think the Republicans are competent enough to take advantage of that short window, that small window? I don't think so. And I'm pro-Republican, and I'm pro-Trump, and I'm pro all these people. But I don't think they shoot straight enough and consistent enough that they'll be able to do much about it. So, as far as I'm concerned, we should not get rid of the filibuster because I think it will come back and bite us on the butt. And I don't think we need to. I think there's a good chance we're going to keep control of the Senate for quite some time. And I should note that here's a prominent law firm of Thomas Coburn has to say about the odds of the Republicans keeping the U.S. Senate at least from 2026 to 2028. Here's what they have to say about that odds, or those odds. The 2026 Senate midterm election should be the Republicans to lose with a map that strongly favors the GOP. With a 3-seat Senate majority and Vice President J.D. Vance as the tiebreaker, Democrats need to pick up 4 seats to capture the majority. It's a tall order for the Democrats, who need to defend an open seat in Michigan and a toss-up in Georgia, while toppling at least 3 Republicans in states that President Donald Trump carried in the year of our Lord 2024. So that's all great news. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think we should get rid of the filibuster. I think it's a dangerous move, even though the Democrats are threatening to do so. I don't see a tremendous advantage for the home team. And again, I don't like the idea of setting the precedent for the enemy to go ahead and do that. So that is where my head is at right now, but I can be persuaded I'm wrong, and feel free to comment and tell me, Mark, you've got this totally wrong. But yes, I disagree with President Trump on this. I feel pretty strong about this, but again, I have an open mind, and if somebody can tell me, Mark, you're an idiot, you've screwed this up, here's the things you've missed, I'm willing to listen. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in, and make sure you follow me on X at @4boxes9. Don't forget to subscribe to YouTube and to Rumble. I look forward to talking to all of you again real soon here at the 4 Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.